Well, that's a very nice looking sky. Obviously a lot of muck in the atmosphere. You can see that in those darker layers low down in the western and southwestern sky, and it's forecasted to become cloudy in the next few hours. I'm hoping to have 2 or 3 hours here at least and see what comes in. It's the 18th of September today, so we should have more in the way of more typical autumn fare. I'm just deciding where to go here at the side of Lound Wood because we've got northeasterly breeze again, and so I think I may well trap alongside the wood where we had the Clifton non-parade the last time we were here. So I've seen moths flying about, so it's time I decided exactly where I'm going to trap and get set up. Well, we're off and running. The lights just starting to get warmed up and get to the full brightness. Time now for me to finish setting up, and we'll see what we can catch this evening. Hopefully I won't need too many catch cups to catch hornets. And when setting up, first things first, always found it good and useful to have a cup of tea at startup, often in the anticipation that we're too busy to drink tea when the moths start coming in. I don't think we'll have that problem this evening, so I can enjoy my tea in peace. Well, I'm using the lee of the hedge here on the southern side of this hedge, which runs across from Lound Wood west to the minor road, which is several hundred yards away. I'm quite safe here, locked behind closed gates, and conditions are ideal. It's very still, as you can see by the foliage of the hedge against the light, and the catch already has somewhat of an autumn feel to it, and you would expect that as we are now just into the second half of September. There's brindled green in, broad bordered yellow undoing, large yellow undoing, pink barred sallow. There's 2 of those in. That's a new species in. No centre barred sallow yet. They may well be on the point of finishing, but we should have some colourful moths to show you during tonight's session. Let's hope so. Anyway, no rain is forecast, and that's a carpet that's coming in. In fact, that's a brimstone which is just flopped on the left of the sheet there. So we'll see what the night brings. We can't be lucky and have another night like last time. No Clifton non-parade this evening. Well, here's a moth I rarely get the opportunity to show you, and the number of crane flies that are around at the moment might make it even more difficult. But this is a broad bordered yellow undoing, very powerfully built moth. Look at the size of the thorax. It's a very attractive moth and comes in a range of colour forms, from very dark sort of olive greens through to almost yellow. A really stout and strong moth, always in lesser numbers than large yellow undoing, but a very nice moth to catch. Rare that it settles on the sheet like this. So that's the first of the moths that we get the chance to have a look at, despite the best intentions and efforts of the crane flies. (14 centigrade at the moment, the temperature. And I've got the jumper on for the first time because I expect it to feel cooler than what it actually is. It feels very pleasant, but that's probably the effect of me wearing a jumper. But just going back to September the 5th, when we were last here, and of course the Clifton non-parade night, there was also the White Point night, and they were 2 new species for the Ecrine area. There ended up being a third because I took a micro home which I didn't immediately recognise, wanted to photograph and see it in the cold light of day, and it turned out to be species number 694 for the Ecrine area, in the form of Cochilimorpha straminea, which is a very nicely and quite variably marked tortrix. Feeds on knapweed, the larva does, and there's lots and lots of knapweed just about 100 yards or so away at the bottom of the hill here at Lound Wood. So to get another new species here tonight and to take the Equine moth list up to 695 would be something. I'm sat here dreaming of what 695 could be, and it would have to be something particularly special. Probably in the form of a migrant. I can't think of anything that's native and local to here that could come in. There are possibles. I don't want to dream too much. And another look at one of our familiar friends in the form of this brimstone. I know I show them a lot, but when you have a moth like this on the sheet, it's better to admire it. Absolute stunning species, and a great introduction to moths for children or to somebody of any age that has an interest or is maybe thinking of having an interest in moths. This is a great one to get them interested. Now here's a moth which I don't think I've featured on this channel before, but this is an orange sallow. Very nicely marked moth. The ground colour of a nice sort of fulvous light brown, and then various lines, cross lines across the forewings, and those two round circular marks. Is a relatively easy moth to identify. And of the sallow moths, this isn't one of the commonest, at least not in my experience. It's a moth that Dillis and I never used to catch with any great regularity anywhere, but I have had this at home, but just on the odd occasion, or maybe only the once. So I'm quite pleased with this one. This is a nice one to add to the colourful moth list of this evening. And this is one of those species which I've completely forgotten about as being likely to turn up. So that's orange sallow. Otherwise, it's very quiet here at the moment. 17 species in so far, and we're just over the hour mark, about an hour and 10 minutes to be honest, and I thought I'd just go through what species have come in and then drop photos in as I go along. And large yellow wandering, we're now on to 4 of those. Already seen the broad bordered yellow wandering. 8 brimstones in. There's possibly more because there's 1 or 2 in the grass that haven't actually come to the light at all. Cetaceous Hebrew character, single common marbled carpet, a very nicely marked one. Square spot rustic, 4 of those. Light emerald, 2 pink barred sallows, still no more have come into the light. Brindled green, lunar undoing, the first lunar undoing of the autumn. Dusky thorn, canary shouldered thorn, common wainscot snout, and orange sallow, which we've just had a look at. Micros, very poor. 2 blastobasis adostella and a Hypatima rhomboidella. That's it. But it's early days, only an hour or so gone. But I'm expecting a quiet night. I often come out expecting a quiet night. Never come out looking to find or catch that big moth. It rarely happens, but you never know. It's one of the joys of moth trapping. You never know what you're going to catch. You might think you know or have a good idea of what you're likely to catch, but it doesn't always work out like that. But anyway, see what comes in the second hour. Well, getting slightly worn now, but here's an example of common marbled carpet. Very easy and quite uniquely marked carpet, although it is very variable, but this is probably the commonest form with those large sort of tawny patches on each forewing. Makes this instantly identifiable. This is a second that's come in this evening, just this minute come in, and I thought that it's not a moth that I often show, but it does fly in 2 broods, so you get the spring brood and then a few months later, this late summer and autumn brood. So that's common marbled carpet. Not many carpets flying about this time of year. Well, as you can see, and you've probably gathered by now that there's not a deal happening. It is very, very disappointing. It has got more breezy in this last half an hour. And so anything that's not in the lee of this western edge of Lound Wood or the lee of this hedge isn't going to be flying very far. That's my theory anyway. And I've only added 4 species to the list this second hour, and they are Epiphyus postritana, which is a very common tortrix moth, more common in gardens than anywhere rural like this. Ipsilofa parenthicella, and that wasn't a sparkling example, so I've not bothered to film that. And 2 macros in, lesser yellow underwing and a mouse moth. Now, mouse moth is fairly unusual. It's not particularly rare, but it's as drab can be. And I'm not going to film this one because I think God, when he did mouse moth, he'd either had an argument with his missus, or he'd run out of colour ink in his printer. But not an exciting moth, as you can see from the photo that I've put in. And that's the state of affairs. Very, very quiet. Well, the end of the second hour, and it's just not happening this evening. Very, very disappointing. I expected more from this. I didn't expect a brilliant night, and I certainly didn't expect it to be the same as September the 6th, but I expected a few more moths. We've just about scraped 20 species in 2 hours. The only other species that's come in the last few minutes or so is Emelina monodactyla, the common plume. But it just doesn't feel as though anything's going to come in. Nothing appears to be flying. But what I might do from here on the way home, might go down to the bottom of Ecrin near Ecrin Flash and check the ivy there, see if anything's nectaring on ivy. It's something I've never done before, and I really ought to do more of it, because you never know what can turn up on ivy. So that might be something that I do on the way home, but I'm afraid now it's pack up time. Very disappointing. I expected more from this. I'm down at a patch of ivy, very close to Ecrin Flash. In fact, I did a video from here the other day. There are no moths at all nectaring on this ivy. There's very few moths flying that you can see in the headlights of the car, but certainly there is nothing here. Sometimes things aren't all that obvious. That's a shame. It would be nice to see something on ivy. The moon about a day past 4.